Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery. Thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction. And welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine radio show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. More than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan. I'm here for 3 hours each week talking about the great outdoors here in the great state of Michigan. Hunting, fishing, shooting, trapping, wildlife issues, conservation issues, even some wild game cooking. And I'm so glad to have you along with us. So what is the biggest question right now in the outdoors? Think about it. What is the biggest question you hear? You walk into a new group of people, you see your friends, you pick up the phone. What do people say? Did you get your deer yet? That's the question. Did you get your deer yet? I hear that all the time. And as we are sitting here in the studio right now, I don't know the answer to that. Because we recorded a little bit early this week. So as I'm sitting here in the studio, the season opens tomorrow. And I have to be honest, I am the most excited about Michigan's firearm deer season that I have been in years. I can't quite put my finger on it, but it's really got me geeked, and I'm so excited about it. Weather turned cold for us. Supposed to be an east wind on the opening morning. So what we did, see, we have some property. I say we. It's we, my son James, grandson Trent, granddaughter Addison. We were blessed to be able to find a piece of property that we could lease about 40 minutes from the house, 30 minutes from the house, not too bad. And for the last couple of years, we've been deer hunting out there as a family. We put in a few food plots last summer. We're still, and Gene and Pam, the landowner, property owners there, they've been just so generous in allowing us access to the property and allowing us to put in those food plots and put in stands and ground blinds. And it's really working out great. And I think that's part of my excitement, to have a place to go hunt and to be able to do it as a family. So the weather forecast called for an east wind on opening day, and it called for it to be cold too. An east wind on opening day. And the stand that Addison and James like to hunt together really isn't set up for an east wind. So we went out there the day before the opener. Look, and I know you're not supposed to do this, let it quiet down and have everything all set, but you've got to adapt to the situation. You've got to adapt to the weather and what Mother Nature is going to throw at you. So this particular stand that has been so hot is not set up for an east wind. So the day before the season, we had an extra Primal Tree Stands double ladder stand. I'm not much of a tree stand hunter anymore, but if I'm going to be up a tree, it's going to be in a ladder stand. And I'm really impressed with these Primal, the system they have. It's called a jaw and truss system. And it's got a set of jaws that actually wrap around the tree at the tree stand level, and you can cinch it down using a strap and get a good, solid, nice, tight grip on the tree. And then there's a truss system that keeps the stand nice and solid. So if I'm going to be up in a tree stand, it's going to be a stand like this one because I feel comfortable up there. So we went out on the day before the opener. No, 2 days before the opener. 2 days before the opener. And we got the stand all set up and got it set in there just rock solid. We refreshed the batteries in the trail cameras, a ground blind that I hunted in opening morning. I wanted to just tweak it just a little bit because I had been sitting over this, only a couple of times, sitting over this really small food plot with my crossbow. And so I had the blind positioned in just a certain way so I could hunt the food plot, and that was about it. But with the firearm season and the east wind, and because we are adjacent to some state property, we thought, well, I need to tweak that setup a little bit so I can keep a better eye over to the east. So I'm in the southeast corner of the property in a Wraith 270 see-through ground blind. I love those ground blinds. My grandson Trent, the northeast corner of the property, in one of the old beautiful ground blinds. This property had a bunch of old ground blinds all set up. They're in pretty rough shape right now, but they do the job. They conceal us. They keep us somewhat warm. And then Trent and Addison are over on the north side of the property in that primal double stand that we'd hung. How did we do? I don't know. I don't know. Ask me in a couple of days and I can tell you, but I'm cautiously optimistic. My goal is to shoot a big doe. I really want to shoot a big doe with that Brenton 350 Legend. Brenton, a Michigan-made company that I really enjoy working with a lot. I love working with Michigan-based family-owned companies, and Brenton USA Hunting Rifles is one of them. So I got a 350 Legend, 350 and the 450 Bushmaster, two of the most popular calibers in Michigan right now because they allow you to hunt in the shotgun zone, the southern part of the state, using a straight-walled centerfire rifle. I didn't go with the 450 for a couple of reasons. The 450 is a wonderful round. It's very, very effective, but it does have a certain amount of recoil. And 450 ammo can be a little tougher to get than the 350 Legend, and the 350 doesn't have much recoil. It's not that I'm that recoil shy, but it's like, well, why would you beat yourself up if you don't have to? Plus, I knew my grandson Carter was going to be hunting in the early season, the youth hunt, and he's a pretty small-framed guy. So I thought, we'll go with the 350. I could use that for my Michigan bear hunt. That 350 is good for anything I'm going to be hunting in Michigan, maybe short of if I ever did get a Michigan elk tag. And if I get a Michigan elk tag, I'll worry about it then. So my goal, the first adult doe that walks in front of me is going to get shot. We do have on trail camera, we've got to know the neighbors around there. We all talk, and everybody's got trail cameras up, and I find this fascinating that you can kind of keep an eye on the deer herd without being out there these days. So between us and the neighbors, there are a couple of pretty nice bucks wandering around out there. It's something that would make me pull the trigger. So I'm not telling you if a decent buck walks in front of me, I'm not going to shoot it, but that would be a bonus. My goal, to put down a big doe and put some more meat in the freezer. With the weather being so cold, that should be a plus, right? Gets the deer up and moving. It's also a plus because hunters get cold early and they get up and they start moving around. And when they get up and start moving around mid-morning, they bump the deer around. And for the people who are patient enough and warm enough to sit there throughout the morning, you might see a little bit more activity. And isn't it easier to stay warm these days? I was thinking about that as I was switching over. I wear Versa Skins, again, a Michigan-based company. But the cool thing about them is you can snap on and zip on a different outer shell. So as I'm covering my bow hunting camo with Blaze Orange camo, I just put a vest over it, snapped it on, zipped it on. I was ready to go. I thought, man, it's so much easier to stay warm these days. I've got a heated vest, which is almost like cheating. The clothes are warm, waterproof, windproof. And what about hand warmers? Do we ever can we ever give hand warmers enough credit? I remember in the old days, the only hand warmers we had, and this sounds just so old-fashioned, and it was, they were in a metal case, in a little flannel bag, and you powered them with butane. And they never seemed to work, and they always ran out of juice when you needed them. And, of course, they were big and bulky. You couldn't put them in the toes of your boots. You couldn't walk around with those things there. What about the hand warmers we've got now? Little, tiny, disposable. You don't have to do anything with them but take them out of the pack. I put them in the toes of my boots. I put them in my gloves. Here's a tip for you. Put one on the back of your neck. If you put one of those little things on the back of your neck, man, it's so comfortable. Oh, it's part of this tradition, right? By the time you're hearing this show, you will likely have been in the woods for a few days. Maybe you've got your deer, whether it's a doe, a little buck, a big buck, doesn't matter. Congrats to you. But now it starts to get interesting, right? Because you've been out there for a while. The deer know they've been hunted. Hunter numbers are going to go down here a little bit, right? Except for the hardcore people. So what does it mean? It means you've got to stick it out. You've got to be out there. You can't shoot a deer from your couch. I don't care how cold it is, how frustrated you get, how you think there's no deer around here. Stick it out. Maybe you'll be rewarded. And even if you're not rewarded with a deer, you will be rewarded with that experience of being out there and being part of the history and tradition that is firearm deer season here in Michigan. Send me your pictures. I want to see them. Send them to the Facebook page. I'll post them there. Send me an email to mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. That's mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. Or send them to me in a private message on the Facebook page, and I would love to share them. Coming up after the break, we'll talk with a UP hunter. His name is Josh Stein. Then Beth Gruden of the Michigan Wildlife Council. In hour number 2, let's talk a little long-range shooting. With Paul Phillips, Nick Green of MUCC will be with us as well. And in our third hour, we're going to switch gears and talk about late fall and wintertime steelhead fishing with Lance Keene. And then we'll follow up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. And another announcement from Dave coming up this week. You're going to have to stay tuned to find out what that is right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Alpena on WZTK 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Battle Creek on WBCK 95.3 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Iron Mountain, WMIQ 1450 AM. Speaking of north of the bridge, this segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Rapid River Knives. You know what I'm going to say next. I have a Rapid River knife in my pocket right now, as I always do. And I would strongly encourage you to check them out as well. Handmade by craftsmen in Michigan's UP. I carry a folding knife with me all the time, but I can also use it to field process deer. They make gutting knives, skinning knives, fillet knives, hatchets, axes, kitchen knives. Anything you can think of that involves a blade, the folks at Rapid River Knife Works can take care of you. Check out their showroom in Rapid River on US 2. That's just east of Rapid River on US 2. Or check out the website, rapidriverknifeworks.us. That's rapidriverknifeworks.us. Great people, great products, great company. What more could you ask? Well, let's stay on our UP theme here for a few more minutes and check in with Josh Stein. Josh is a hardcore outdoorsman from the UP. And he's got an interesting perspective, and I always enjoy our conversations. Josh, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Mike. How's everything below the bridge?
Everything down here is just great. We're recording, as you know, just before the firearm opener. I'm anxiously anticipating that, but I want to hear the story to start out with of this buck you shot in the late part of the archery season. What a monster, and what great pictures.
Yeah, that was a good deer. I hunted hard for him this year. And as far as the pictures, I've got a really good guy up here, Scott Niska. He does photography for me and films a lot of my hunts, especially when we travel out of state. He's kind of my camera guy, so got to give him credit for the nice pictures.
They're beautiful. You talk about going out of state. Now, you're part of the, what crew are you with? What TV show?
Hardcore Pursuit.
Yeah, a great group of guys out of the UP.
Yeah, they all hunt real hard. Mike's a good hunter.
Josh, have you had a chance to hunt much in Michigan below the bridge at all?
Yeah, I actually grew up in Osceola County and hunted extensively down there until I moved to the UP for college back in the early 2000s. So I've kind of seen both sides of the bridge.
Well, and you moved up there and never came back.
No.
What's the appeal? Why do you like? I mean, it's tough, right? Your winter times up there can be brutal.
Yeah, it is a long winter, but boy, anybody's been to the Western UP, it's pretty special. And if you're an outdoors person, it's just mind-boggling the amount of land and public land, rivers, lakes, inland, Lake Superior. It's awesome.
Will you, when you're out there in your honey hole, your hot spots, do you even see other hunters?
Oh, yeah. All the spots I hunt are heavily hunted. And one thing that's interesting is I don't really have a honey hole. I actually feel like I'm an underachiever in hunting, because if you knew the amount of cameras I run and counties I hunt and spots I hunt just to try to eke out a decent deer every year, I feel like I'm working way harder than I should be.
Well, I got to believe, though, that hard work is one of the reasons why you are so successful year after year.
Well, I enjoy every part of it. I enjoy doing food plots and the scouting, and every year I'm, setting up a new spot and trying something different. So it's all enjoyable, and it makes it a year-round sport.
How is deer hunting in the UP different than down below?
It's real different. When I first moved up here, I grabbed a plat book and started exploring, and I'm checking out all this national forest, and I'm not even finding deer trails because there's not a lot of things to funnel deer. There's not a concentrated food source and a concentrated cover like there is in lower Michigan. So it was a big learning curve there the first 3 to 5 years.
You can bait in the UP. Do you hunt over bait at all?
Yes, I do. I got both. I have some spots that are just food plots, and I've got some spots that, you have to have bait or you wouldn't see much of anything. Those are the two primary ways I hunt. I don't do a lot of the walking and stuff like some guys do.
My hat's off to guys like that and gals like that, because it's I couldn't do it, and I'm looking at the amount of land up there, and in some cases not a huge population of deer. Yeah, baiting seems like the way to go, whether it's food plot or bait. I mean, you got to get something. You got to get something to get those deer coming your direction.
Absolutely. I mean, there's spots where if I didn't bait them, you would hardly ever see a deer. There'd be no reason for them to be there. So,
do you, in the western part of the UP where you are there, do your deer migrate?
Yep. In fact, every property is different. I got some spots that by mid-December you won't see another deer again until May. And then I've got good late season spots where I have just a handful of deer through October, November. And then once the snow hits in December, I'll have 20, 30 deer move into that property.
Now, that's something we don't see here as much in the lower peninsula, migration of deer.
Yeah, migration is really interesting. And if you can figure it out, that's one of the best ways to get a mature buck up here is late season.
But you got that big mature buck in the early season, in bow season. Tell me the story of that buck.
Yeah, that buck showed up at one of my spots last year, right around the rut, like late October, early November. And believe it or not, I'm pretty sure that buck is only a 3.5-year-old deer. I know that people don't believe that based on the pictures, but a 3-year-old deer in the UP can be a pretty big animal. But he was around last year as a 2-year-old. I passed him up during gun season and late season and collected both of his sheds. And then this summer, all of a sudden, I got one picture of him kind of passing through, and I'm like, wow, he really blew up. But putting the sheds next to his antlers, there's no question it's the same deer. And then he started finally showing up October 1st, just sporadically. I put in 13 sits for him, trying to catch him in daylight. And then finally on November 7th was the first time I saw him in daylight. And it was a brand new food plot I kind of created just to try to kill him. And I had one of those hodag licking sticks in the ground, and he come out before dark and started raking that stick. And the shot was a little bit quartering to me, but that's all I was going to get on him. But I hit him where I wanted to, decided I need to wait till morning. I get to the north end of my property, and all of a sudden this pack of wolves just starts going crazy. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Because I have, if you see in my Instagram, I've got several clips of them this year carrying off deer legs, deer heads. These wolves are just raising hell here this year. So I took my side-by-side and went up to the north end to push these wolves north, and it seems to have worked. I heard them howling about a quarter mile north later that night, but they didn't get to my deer by morning, so I was thankful.
Wow. Yeah, and that's another thing we don't have to worry about down here is packs of wolves. Coyotes, yes. Wolves, no.
Yeah, the wolves are getting really thick up here. I mean, I know everybody talks about it, but it is really getting bad. They're everywhere.
Well, they didn't get to this guy. So did you find him right away next morning?
Yeah, he only went about 140 yards, and he was probably dead when I left, but I was better safe than sorry. I just wasn't quite sure with that angle.
And they dressed out like 192, something crazy like that?
Yeah, 192 pounds dressed. That's a pretty good deer. I've had quite a few that have weighed more than that, but he's probably like top 5 weight-wise.
More than that. So see, there's a difference too. A lot of times I think, well, these southern Michigan corn-fed bucks are the really truly big bucks, but those swamp bucks, those big bucks up there that you guys that don't get harassed maybe like they do down here, it's some true studs.
Well, especially in the Keweenaw Peninsula, it's been survival of the fittest for decades and decades, so these deer up here are large animals.
Is that where you're hunting, Keweenaw?
Keweenaw, Houghton, Baraga, Ontonagon, and Iron counties.
Josh, I just gained even more respect for you.
Yep.
That's some pretty rough country up there in places.
Yeah, no, like I said, the strategy for me is just to spread out, and I run many, many spots a year, and from year to year, you never know which one might actually have a halfway mature deer around, and then you kind of decide where to spend your time that year. So
are you for the most part on public land?
No, most of it's private now. It was all public land the first 10 years or so here, but I've managed to get private land spots here over the years now.
Well, and how is it getting access to property up there? As you know, downstate, it can be tough.
It's way easier up here. I remember the first time I ever tried it, I was going to Michigan Tech, and I ran into this guy, and he had a nice-looking property, and I said, "Does anybody hunt here?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, I got a spot." So he brought me back and showed me his gun blind and told me to sit there. He wanted me to sit right in his blind. I was like, that would never happen downstate.
Would you rather gun hunt or bow hunt?
Bow hunt. I was just talking to some buddies about that today. Rifle season isn't quite my thing.
Will you be out there? Are you out there now during the rifle season, or will you hunt with your bow during gun season?
No, if I go, I'll take my rifle, but my primary goal this year in the past few years is to take my son out, get him on a deer. If I had a deer I was after, I would certainly get out there with a rifle, but I've shot very few bucks with a rifle over the years, but I'm hoping to get my son on one, and that will be a big win.
Now, what about the late season? If you get an early snow, especially up there in the Keweenaw, that's got to change everything.
Yeah, and I love it because, like I said, I've got certain spots that are just designed for that. So if we get heavy early snow, those spots are really going to turn on, and lots of random bucks show up. There was one year where I hadn't had any bucks killed in Michigan yet, and finally when that weather came, I shot a nice 8 on December 17th, and then on December 22nd, same spot, a bigger one showed up, and I got him a week later. So it can happen late.
And that was, that was during the late season. Wow.
Yep.
Well, and supplemental feeding, do you feed in the wintertime? I know there are groups up there that do.
Yes. Yeah, we feed, and we donate to anybody that feeds. We feed second cut hay and pellets all winter. And I really think it does help these deer big time.
Well, that's not cheap.
No, but there's a lot of people that are willing to band together and put money together, because certain areas up here, you wouldn't hardly have a huntable herd if you weren't helping them through these winters.
Yeah. Hang tight, Josh. I've got a few more questions for you. We're talking to Josh Stein, a hardcore UP hunter. By the way, he's also, well, we'll talk to him more about this after the break, but a website for him is joshsteinland.com. Josh was talking about access to properties and such, joshsteinland.com. Check out his Instagram feed. Very cool. Some great pictures of that big UP buck here he killed just a couple of weeks ago. And he will be out there during the gun season, as many of you will as well. As I said earlier, if you want to share a picture with me, send it to me. Email MikeAveryOutdoors.com, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com, or just post it. Send it to me in a private message on Facebook. Facebook is all screwed up these days. It's hard for somebody who isn't an admin to post a picture on my page anymore. So email it to me, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com, or send me a private message on Facebook, and I will do my very best to get it up there right away. And it doesn't have to be a trophy. It doesn't have to be a monster buck like Josh shot. Anything you're proud of, we want to celebrate that with you. Send it to me, and we'll post it on the Facebook page. My name is Mike Avery, and this is Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in St. Joe on WSJM 94.9 FM. You can hear us in Tawas on WIOS 1480 AM 106.9 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Escanaba on WCHT 600 AM 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Boning Archery. Michigan-based Boning has been a leader in the archery industry since 1946. They continue to lead and innovate, come up with new products, new manufacturing processes. What a great company this is. And Michigan-based. Did I mention that? You know I love to work with Michigan-based companies. Probably, as you are out there in the Michigan firearm season, you may not have any Boning products with you, at least not on your gun. But as we get back into the late season, the archery season, there's a good chance that you will have something from Boning. And if not, I would suggest you check it out. The website is boning.com. That's BOHNING.com. Boning.com. Right now we're talking with UP deer hunter Josh Stein. His website, joshsteinland.com. Joshsteinland.com. Josh, what is that website about? That's not a hunting website, is it?
It is. It's real estate and hunting. It started off as my real estate website, and back then I was hunting some of the properties I had for sale, and I always enjoyed filming my hunts, so YouTube came along, so I started posting some of those, and that was really successful. I had people email me and be like, I can buy that property that you're hunting, and I'm like, yeah. And the rest is history. We sold a lot of property that way.
Josh, that's a genius move.
Yeah, no, it worked out pretty good. It was fun for people to see it and get excited about it, and I even had that happen just a few years ago where a guy looked at a property, was kind of on the fence about it, and then 2 weeks later, I shot a really nice buck on it and posted that video, and he called me, and he's like, okay, we'll take it.
That's not even fair. So how are property values in the U compared to downstate?
Well, obviously, things got really busy during the pandemic. Mostly housing. We saw a lot of residential, and those prices went up quite a bit. Land, the prices didn't really increase too much. It just kind of cleaned up a lot of inventory that had been sitting out there for a few years. But it's been pretty busy.
Oh, I bet. All right, some tips for hunters here. At the end of the firearm season, then going into the late archery season. Down here, downstate, our deer have been pressured by the time we get, to Thanksgiving a lot. Is that the case in the UP as well?
Yeah, even here, I feel like by the end of gun season, muzzleloader gets going, but it usually takes about a week after rifle season before you'll start to see these deer kind of calm down and start to daylight. And, I'm usually a big proponent of hunt smarter, not harder. I really don't like to overhunt my spots. I just kind of rely on cameras. I use a lot of cellular cameras, which are getting more popular with people for good reason. And I just wait until something good shows up and then wait for the right wind and conditions and then make your move.
Yeah, wait for the right conditions. Don't force a hunt, right?
That is correct. Yeah, if you hunt a spot, the way I grew up, a lot of people in my family, we hunted the same spot day after day after day, and by the third day, you weren't going to see a daylight deer for quite a while.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, though, because in the first segment, you were telling me you actually did 13 sits waiting for that big buck. I think the number was 13, and I wondered when you said that if you were worried about burning out that spot.
Yeah, well, that's usually not the way it works for me. A lot of my buddies, we talked about that. Like, I might not even sit 13 times in a season, but a couple things, like this buck was at a couple different spots, and the one I was mainly hunting, I was really able to get in and out of that spot with very low impact, so I was confident that I wasn't hurting anything. And the other trick is some of these spots like these, I'm hunting out of Banks blinds now. We actually became a dealer for Banks blinds this year. We sell them up here, so I got a few. And it's just amazing how when you're sitting in a Banks blind, these deer can't smell you, don't hear you, and it does seem like a lot less impact hunting that way.
So you can hunt a spot more without burning it out.
That's how I feel.
So the Banks, are these hard-sided? Explain these to me.
Yeah, Banks blinds are kind of similar to redneck blinds. They all come in one piece and insulated, and they're super weather tight. So when you're all sealed up in there, the deer just don't smell you. You can talk out loud. They're big. These nice blinds are getting to be more and more popular with hunters, and we had a hard time getting them up here. So I had talked to them, and we became a dealer, and we've been picking up shipments of them and selling them and using some, and they've been great.
Well, if you can stay comfortable, if you can stay warm, if you can stay out of the elements, you're going to sit there longer. If you sit there longer, your odds of seeing deer are better. And if it contains your scent, even better then. So it's like a win-win all the way around.
That's what I'm hoping, especially some of those late season spots. If you get a good deer that shows up, you could comfortably put in some all-day sits in a blind like that.
Josh, where do we see the TV show?
Hardcore Pursuit is on Sportsman Channel on Friday nights. And then here in the UP, it's also on Fox and NBC Sunday mornings.
And then
I just kind of contribute my hunts to them, and they post them. Most people just watch my hunts on YouTube.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Search for Josh Stein Hunting. All my hunts are on there.
Josh Stein Hunting. Is the video of this latest big buck up there yet?
We're going to be dropping the video here probably tomorrow or Wednesday.
All right. So by the time folks hear this show, they can see that video at Josh Stein Hunting on YouTube. Josh, appreciate your time. Always a pleasure. Good luck to you, and congrats on that big buck.
No, thank you very much, and good luck to everybody out there hunting. I think it's going to be a pretty successful gun season for everybody out there this year. The weather's looking good, and everybody should have a good time.
Excellent. Josh Stein. JoshSteinLand.com. You can also find out on YouTube as Josh Stein Hunting. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, we'll check in with Beth Gruden of the Michigan Wildlife Council. Then in hour number 2, we'll talk some extreme long-range shooting with Paul Phillips. Nick Green of MUCC checks in. And in our third hour, again, we'll switch gears and talk about late fall steelhead hunting, steelhead fishing with Lance Keene of Steelhead Hunter Charters. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Port Huron on WPHM 1380 AM. You can hear us on the other side of the state in Muskegon, WKBZ 1090 AM. And north of the bridge in Marquette on WDMJ 1320 AM. Just 3 of our more than 30 Outdoor Magazine radio affiliate stations. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your Mid-Michigan tracker and Angler Quest headquarters. Check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. And I've already heard and talked to my friends who are so excited about the upcoming ice fishing season. I'm not. But if you are, God bless you. I hope you get lots of ice. And if you want to chase Saginaw Bay walleye through the ice, Linwood Beach Marina is a great place to head out and give it a try. Well, this weekend, the first weekend of the Michigan firearm deer season, a lot of eyes on the outdoors, a lot of people talking about hunting here in our great state of Michigan. The folks at the Michigan Wildlife Council and their Here for Generations campaign think that's great. They like to get the population thinking about hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping. And Beth Gruden is a member of that council with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Beth, welcome back. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm great. It's a wonderful time of year, and all eyes are on the outdoors, and that's a wonderful thing.
It is.
How are things going at the Michigan Wildlife Council? Anything new going on, Beth?
Really good. We just started our fall campaign, so we're working to educate people that their conservation dollars are supporting more than just hunting and fishing, but the trails and the parks and things that maybe the non-hunting population still enjoys.
And it is important to get those folks involved, right? Because, listen, my audience, I tend to think about the hardcore stuff. But if we can get people who enjoy the outdoors in non-consumptive ways, that's important too.
It is. I mean, I think all of us know how much we enjoy being outdoors, and it's nice to show people who maybe didn't grow up that way the benefits of enjoying time outdoors.
I think we're still in some ways outnumbered here in Michigan, right? We have more non-hunters and anglers than we do hardcore hunters and anglers.
Yes, that's very true. Luckily, though, through the campaign, approval of hunting and fishing is still very high in the state.
Well, I know that was the main goal at the beginning, right? Is to get people aware of what we're doing, why we do this, how the money is used, how the money, helps other things. You guys have had a very precise metrics to judge this along the way. Are you seeing a difference? Are you seeing an impact?
We for sure are seeing that needle move. Lately, our last round of research showed that 7 out of 10 people in the Detroit area, which is our target audience, understood that conservation dollars come from our hunting and fishing licenses.
70%, that's huge.
Yeah.
What was the number at the beginning when you started?
I don't remember that number exactly, but it wasn't nearly that high.
I was going to say it was a lot less than 70%, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Beth, here's a question I get all the time. People say, hey, Avery, I hear you talking about this Michigan Wildlife Council and trying to educate people in the southern part of the state. If somebody's listening in the northern lower or the Yup, why should they even care what people in Grand Rapids or Detroit care about what we do?
Ultimately, the population centers can drive regulations. So we need to make sure we explain our story and why we do it and why it would be important to them.
Exactly. That's where the population is. That's where the voters are. Those are the people who make the decisions. So we need them on our side.
Exactly.
And we can't forget, too, there's an awful lot of people in Grand Rapids and Detroit Metro, who are hunters and anglers. They are on our side. So we don't want to paint those areas with a broad brush.
Exactly.
Beth, always a pleasure. Listen, as people are hearing this show this weekend, are you out in the Michigan deer woods? Are you out in the deer blind this weekend?
I sure will be.
Good for you. Good luck. Send me a picture. I want to see a picture, and we'll share it with everybody, all right?
All right, sounds great.
Beth Gruden of the Michigan Wildlife Council and the Here for Generations campaign, the website hereformioutdoors.org, hereformioutdoors.org. That goes for you as well. If you are successful this firearm deer season, I want to see a picture. Send it to me in an email, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com, or post it. Well, Facebook doesn't really let you post it anymore. Send it to me in a private message on Facebook, and I will do some behind-the-scenes clicking and copying and pasting, and we'll share it that way. But because I will be out hunting and because I will likely be inundated with pictures and such, be a little patient with me. Some people say, I sent you a picture this morning. It's not posted. All right, I get it. I'll get to it as quick as I can, but rest assured I will do my best to make sure we share it. We'll take a break here for the top of the hour. When we come back in hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine, Paul Phillips, one of the best extreme long-range shooters in the world, a Michigan man, will join us. Then Nick Green of MUCC checks in, and we'll wrap up the hour with this week's Ask Avery segment and a few questions this week. That's all coming up in hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction. And welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show. Here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. Yes, Outdoor Magazine radio is first and foremost a radio show. And I would encourage you, if you can, to listen to the show on your local radio station. There you get your local news and weather, local sports, even your local commercials. Maybe there's a sale or something you want to take advantage of. Plus, the radio stations get the content of the show before the podcast version is uploaded. Yes, of course, there is a podcast version of the Outdoor Magazine radio show. It's kind of a nice backup. If your local radio station doesn't carry all 3 hours of the show, or if, God forbid, you live in some part of our state not covered by the broadcast signal, yes, there is a podcast as a backup. You can hear that on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. It's on the Facebook page. It's on, well, listen, anywhere you can get a podcast, you can probably get the podcast version of the Outdoor Magazine radio show. That includes Apple Music, Audible, Amazon Music, Twitter, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Odyssey, the whole gamut. Even YouTube. Yes, we do put the Outdoor Magazine radio show, the podcast version of, on YouTube, so that's an option as well. Speaking of podcasts, though, I also do podcasts for some of my partner companies, including Offshore Tackle, Angler Quest Boats, Primal Tree Stands, and Polar Craft Boats. And when we are done here in the studio today recording this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show, we will record this month's Polar Craft podcast as well. Keep an ear out for that. Regardless, though, of when you are hearing my voice, how you are hearing my voice, I do certainly appreciate it. I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing without your support. So as you are hearing the show this weekend, it is the opening weekend of the Michigan firearm deer season. All eyes on the outdoors here in the great state of Michigan, and I think that's cool. Well, until recently, I was going to say I haven't been much of a gun hunter lately, but I'm kind of turning into one now. I think it's my new partnership with Brenton USA Hunting Rifles. I think it's that new Brenton 350 Legend. I think it's being out there gun hunting with my family. Just a number of things have got my gun hunting rejuvenated. I don't pretend to be a great gun hunter, even a very good gun hunter. I'm not necessarily a great shot. Is that important? Do you have to be a good shot or accurate with your gun to be a good gun hunter? You know, that's an interesting question. When I do think about accurate shooting and ballistics experts and extreme long-range shooting, there's one name that comes to mind, and that's my good friend Paul Phillips. He is, well, I was going to say he's one of the best extreme long-range shooters in the world, but I'll tell you what, he's now ranked number one in the world for king of 1 mile. He's made shots out to 4 miles. These days, he spends a lot of time training other hunters how to be better, other shooters how to be better at extreme long ranges. And it's always a pleasure to get him here on the show. And he's a hard guy to get in touch with. But we tracked him down this week, and here he is on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Paul Phillips, welcome back. How are you, buddy?
Great, Mike. Good morning.
Hey, always a pleasure. So listen, what have you been up to?
Well, we did a lot of good shooting this year. The Team GPG took first and second at King of 1 Mile, which was a great goal of mine. And the guys did a great job with following through with the training and executing the plan and winning. There was about 99 people, and taking first and second is a blessing.
King of 1 Mile, shooting at 1 mile, Paul?
Yes, sir.
To most hunters,
Actually,
to most shooters, it's crazy.
Yeah, actually, the targets went from 1,200 yards to 2,400 yards. And the ELR light class is what we call it for King of 1 Mile, is under 26 pounds, 330 caliber and below. Yeah.
Wow.
So a lot of hunters and military and people that have these lighter guns can participate with something like that.
First time I ever saw you shoot at what I thought was a long distance, it was on a 600-yard range, and I thought, that's crazy. Nobody can shoot that far. 600 yards to you, Paul Phillips, is like a chip shot.
Well, we've came a long way since then, Mike. I just got back from Texas last week training a guy in a long-range hunter's course. And the new technology we have today, just since we did the last show, I tested a new item called the Sig Sauer 10K rangefinder. And that'll range targets out to 4,000 or 5,000 yards, no problem. Obviously, we would never shoot an animal that far. But, the lasers with inclement weather and clouds, it'll go way beyond a mile on an animal in any condition. But what we did was we set these targets, random targets, with steel the size of animals, correctly with the size of the animal. And we just went out and picked targets out, randomly rangefinder them, and we utilized all the software from the rangefinder, and we just adjusted the scope off of this, and it's all built in a HUD system within the rangefinder. So you program in your bullet, your velocity, and you just randomly rangefind these targets, and it tells you the adjustments. And we hit every single target out to 1,400 yards within a couple inches of where we were aiming on the animal.
Wow.
So right behind the front shoulder and the tank and heart, every single animal was within just 2 or 3 inches of where we're aiming. And this is in Texas with winds up to 10, 15 mile an hour gusts.
This is the first time I've heard you talking about... Paul, this is the first time I've heard you talking about this long-range hunter's course. This is something new.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So we're reaching out to the, law enforcement, military, and hunters to up their game.
When you talk about upping your game, though, Paul, nobody has upped their game more than you. I mean, what is your longest documented shot at this point?
We did excellent exhibition shots at 3.4 and 4 miles.
4 miles.
But that's just to push the envelope to learn what we can do, right? But to be cold bore shots, because a lot of people talk about what can you do in the first shot. We're doing first run impacts out to about 2,000 yards. You're not safe.
Well, cold bore, first shot. I mean, whether it's military, law enforcement, or hunting, that's really what matters, right?
Yeah, I mean, hunting situations, as you well know, you may only get one opportunity to make the shot. Once you shoot, animals can get scared away, or if people know that they're being shot at, they'll run away, right? So both military and law enforcement and hunting, you'd like to get that cold bore shot.
Well, let's bring it back to hunting here in Michigan. This is the opening weekend of the firearm deer season here in Michigan. Uh-huh. Realistically, Paul, I think, I don't know, do most Michigan deer hunters even take a shot more than 200 yards? How does what you are doing, how does that come back to the Michigan deer hunter?
Sure. Well, to have an accurate zero at 100 yards, that's to where the scope is going to hit where you're aiming. To have that first, that's the first and most important thing. And many people don't even have a good zero in their rifle. And then to have an accurate range, you'd utilize the same science of accuracy with that method that we do out to 2, 3, 4 miles to apply in Michigan to shoot maybe 200, 300, 400 yards. If you can understand how to do that correctly, you might extend your range from 100 to 300, 400 yards across the field. And it's very easy. And it's ethical. You want to make sure that you can hit the point that you want to aim at to effectively take that, that big buck or animal that you're trying to shoot.
And in the southern part of the state, across some of these big cornfields, bean fields, beet fields, whatever, you could be looking at a 300-yard shot.
Absolutely. And with a legend or a Bushmaster, the arc of the bullet is way more than, let's say, a 300 Win Mag or a 30 caliber high power rifle. So you'd utilize the same format to shoot 250, 300 yards with a 350 Legend as you would a competition rifle shooting 1,000 yards. The same procedure.
Ah, I see what you're saying. And you're a big fan of the 350 Legend and the 450 Bushmaster too, aren't you? For southern Michigan hunting.
Absolutely. I'm going to be going hunting with a 350 Legend downstate, and I'll be utilizing the same methods I'll have a cheat sheet card with my arc or my bullet, and where I'm hunting, I have shots out to 300 yards. So when in practice time, I've been able to keep my shots within, less than 5 inches at those ranges, and I won't hesitate if I have a good, broadside shot, feeding or standing still, I'll take the shot.
Hang tight, Paul. We got to take a break. We're talking with Paul Phillips of Global Precision Group, globalprecisiongroupllc.com. Honestly, one of the top extreme long-range shooters in the world. He's a Michigan guy. He's a Michigan hunter. He's a good friend of mine, and we'll talk to him more after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Flint on Sports Extra 1330 WTRX. You can hear us in Lansing on WILS 1320 AM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in the Sioux on News Talk 1400 WKNW. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Michigan-made Brenton USA hunting rifles. AR style, highly accurate, tough, dependable rifles that could change the way you hunt and certainly change the way you look at hunting with AR style rifles. They're made in Lansing, just down the road from the governor's office, which I smile every time I get to say that. Check them out online at BrentonUSA.com. That's BrentonUSA.com. I am hunting this firearm season with a Brenton USA 350 Legend. Possibly by the time you hear this show, I've got a big buck, or maybe if I'm really lucky, a big doe, or maybe if I'm really lucky, a nice buck down. But I'm excited to be back in the woods with a rifle, in large part because of my partnership with Brenton and this 350 Legend. I'm talking right now with Paul Phillips, one of the best extreme long-range shooters in the world. You can learn more about Paul on his website, globalprecisiongroupllc.com, globalprecisiongroupllc.com. Paul, I've seen your extreme long-range rifles. They're beautiful. They're works of art. They wouldn't be practical out in the whitetail woods. Say my Brenton 350 Legend. How can I use what you are doing to be a better hunter? And why did you choose, by the way, the 350 as your hunting caliber of choice?
Yeah, so, we're kind of limited with the, let's say, rifle cartridges in southern Michigan, right? There's kind of a limitation on who makes them. The 450 Bushmaster was the first rifle that I chose. Straight wall cartridge that meets the legal requirements for Michigan. And then the 350 Legend came out, and, I just liked it because it's a little bit less recoil, and it maintains really good accuracy, and it maintains, good energy out to, 200 yards, 250. I think 300 might be pushing it, but, it's just a great cartridge, and I've shot a deer last year, a nice buck with it. And boy, just low recoil, accuracy. I mean, it's like shooting a regular rifle, right? Conventional rifle. I started out shooting a 30-30 as a kid, and I probably bagged, 20, 30 deer as a kid growing up. And the 30-30 worked just fine. I think, the 350 Legend is, not far from it. But, I mean, with the new laws, I think it's a great choice. And I think that rifle that you bought will be a great tool anywhere in the state. It'll be a great tool for you. And you're right. It's very short and compact and accurate and lightweight, low recoil, good for kids. So it's a good all-around rifle for Michigan. Yeah,
that's why I went with the 350, because it was low recoil, great for my small-framed grandson, bear, whitetails. And I've actually got a can on order for that thing, and I think when I get a suppressor on that, it's going to be like, from my perspective, just a great rig.
Oh, yeah. I think I wouldn't, we can go out to the range sometime, maybe Wednesday Night Live or something, Mike, or just on our own, whatever, but we can get you dialed in with the same type of process I'm talking about, and, that'd be a fun segment. But we could get you dialed in to where your pinpoint accuracy all the way out to 250 or 300 yards, and then have like basically a ballistic chart so that if you do have a shot, you can accurately pinpoint those shot placements. And I haven't seen you shoot yet with that rifle, but I'm fairly certain that 250, 300 yards is not a problem.
Well, do you need a special, like, high-end multi-reticle scope to do what you're talking about, Paul?
Nope. You just need to build a ballistic chart to know where to aim or adjust. That's all. And most scopes will have that ability. Even if it's duplex reticle, you can still understand, what your arc is, right? Mm-hmm. So let's say, just hypothetically, let's say it shoots, dead on at 100, and at 200 it might be, let's say, 6 inches low, and then 300 it's 12 inches low. So you would just kind of know where to bracket that, kind of like a bow, right? Same thing. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't need to have a fancy scope. Now, if you did have a reticle, you'd know where to aim in the reticle. Some crossbows have that, the little circle at 20, 30, 40, 50 yards.
Yeah, exactly.
Same thing, right? So you have an arc. So instead of having that built-in system in your reticle, you would just kind of know through practice at the range of where to aim, and you could set targets up, and that would give you the same type of thing.
I gotcha. Hey, yep. Paulie, why is Michigan such a hotbed for this relatively new and very hot sport of extreme long-range shooting? Why are there so many extreme long-range shooters right here in Michigan? Because we don't have the ranges, right? You've got to go out west to shoot at the distances you're looking at.
Yeah. I just think that, it goes back to the Civil War. I mean, Michigan had a sharpshooter division, and they went down and fought. A lot of, I think, came from a lot of farmers and a lot of hunters over the years, way back. And then, as early as I can remember, there's been a lot of competitive shooters that come out of Michigan. And then I think that just created a lot of buzz and passion for the long-range shooting disciplines like PALMA, which is 800, 900,000, and then PRS and F-class and high-power long-range, and then now ELR. I mean, just a lot of people that kind of, been involved in hunting, and then a lot of those folks like to, push the distance, like myself and other people. And then, obviously you're right, we don't have miles to shoot. I mean, it's pretty difficult to find miles to shoot in Michigan, but so a lot of us will travel. Well, but you're right. Texas, and a lot of those other states, Kansas and Texas, they have a lot of people that just out their backyard, and they can shoot miles.
Yeah. Well, certainly you, Paul Phillips, and your buddies and your partners. I mean, you've played a big role in this. And I, from knowing you, I think it's just the appeal, like you say, of pushing the envelope. How far can we take this? How much can technology help? What kind of cartridge? What ballistics and it's a challenge for you, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, I really enjoy it. It's interesting. It's a challenge. And when I got back from Texas just a few days ago, I wasn't sure what to expect with this new rangefinder with the built-in heads-up display linked to my, all my ballistic information. Then that's Applied Ballistics software. We talked about him before in shows, Brian Litz. But I mean, what we have now is absolutely incredible. And I took the guy out first time raw, and he was shooting. I was just doing the rangefinding and giving him the information what it said on the rangefinder. And he hit every single target out to 1,400 yards in a hunting application. And these targets weren't the same locations. They were 360 degrees and different ranges, just, kind of like playing, just raw shooting and just picking a target out and range finding it and coming up with a ballistic formula and shooting it. So, back to Michigan again, applying it to Michigan hunters, they can do the same thing no matter if it's, 300 yards or 500 yards with a high-power rifle. It's the same process, but again, I can't reemphasize this enough. There's technology out there, because there's a lot of Michigan hunters that go out west hunting elk and muleys and antelope too.
Sure.
As a matter of fact, I just trained a guy a couple weeks ago. He was going out for an elk hunt, and we went to the range, and I taught him how to utilize the Kestrel and the rangefinder. out to 500 yards is all. But still,
is all. Is all.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just laugh
What's
because
that?
I say for you 500 yards is all. But Paul, I find it interesting that in the past, and God bless you for doing this, a lot of your training has been, law enforcement and your buddies in the military. I find it pretty cool that you're kind of broadening this a little bit and taking it out to the hunting population as well.
That's where my grassroots are, Mike. I started out as a young kid with my dad hunting whitetail and small game, and even shooting a BB gun, as far as I can hit a pop can. But, it's my passion, to see how far we can push the limits. And I can't stress this enough. Even if it's a 260-yard shot, you better have your zeros proper, because if you have a low or high shot, you could wound an animal and be tracking it all night or potentially lose it. And now, especially if you're in an area where it's not a big boundary, right? You only have maybe a couple square acres or 5 acres, and if it gets loose and gets on someone else's land, we know how that can be a problem today.
Yeah.
So you want to make the ethical shot. You want to be able to drop it and not lose it or wound it. I was talking to a hunter. We were doing a hunter that was doing over in Africa, hunting African game. If you have a $30,000 tag and you wound it, and you don't get it, you still have to pay them. So this plays a role in hunters all over the world, where you want to make sure you have an ethical shot and you can take it quickly and ethically, and you don't lose it.
Well, Paul, you've got so much going on. I'm so excited about it. I like this concept of taking your technology and your principles to the world of hunting. I appreciate what you're doing for law enforcement in the military. And listen, I look forward to getting together with you on the range. And let's talk about some of these things. At this point, it might be more of a springtime once it starts to warm up again here. But there's a lot that we can talk about, a lot we can share with people in a Wednesday Night Live, in future radio shows. Maybe get you together with my buddies at Brenton USA and just see where this all takes us.
Sure. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do a segment on the 350 Legend or the 450, and let's talk about how a hunter can utilize the same stuff. Maybe not the high end stuff. Maybe just a low budget package. Sure. And they can go out and there's tools that they can use to help their success in hunting in hunting season.
Paul, that sounds wonderful. I'm going to get out of your hair, let you get on with your day. I'll send people to your website, globalprecisiongroupllc.com, globalprecisiongroupllc.com, and I'll look forward to talking again soon, buddy.
Hey, are you going hunting opening day?
I am.
For guns?
I am. I'll be out there with that Brenton 350 Legend.
Well, awesome, man. Good luck, and I'll be out there as well.
All right, good luck to you as well. I look forward to seeing the picture. Paul Phillips of globalprecisiongroupllc.com. Honestly, one of the best extreme long-range shooters in the world. Recently, as proof of that, ranked number 1 in the world for King of 1 Mile, and he's shooting way, way beyond that. globalprecisiongroupllc.com. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, we'll check in with Nick Green of MUCC, see what's going on in his world, and then we'll wrap up this week's show, or this second hour of the show, with this week's Ask Avery segment. Several questions this week, including how close can you hunt to the property line of the neighbor? Well, that's a question a lot of people ask. We'll have the answer to that and more right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Caro on WKYO 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM. You can hear us in Holland on WHTC 1450 AM and 99.7 FM, and north of the bridge in Manistee on WTIQ 1490 AM 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Michigan-based VersaSkins. Just change your skin for the season you're in. I did that. I took my VersaSkins and snapped on and zipped on a blaze orange vest, an outer shell, and I'm good to go, legal and safe. It's as easy as that. Just snap on and zip on the outer liner. Change your skin for the season you're in. The website, versaskins.com. That's versaskins.com. Well, as you are hearing this show, it is the Opening weekend of the Michigan firearm deer season, a big weekend in the outdoors. When I think of the outdoors in Michigan, one of the topics or one of the groups that comes to mind, of course, MUCC, Michigan United Conservation Clubs. Nick Green is their Chief Information Officer and joins us once again. Nick, welcome back. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Mike. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine. So you're not much of a deer hunter these days, are you?
I try to get out a couple times a year. Once I got dogs, and I got a lot of dogs and I started bird hunting. It kind of took up my time.
Yeah.
I still enjoy it, and I think, as my wife and I probably look to start a family, I'll probably go back to bow hunting here shortly because that's an endeavor I can do much closer to home than grouse or woodcock or chasing ducks all over the state. So I still enjoy it a lot. I enjoy getting out there, but I don't put the time in that I used to, and I do envy all of those who can.
Well, and I understand that completely, and I'll tell you what kind of got me rejuvenated to some degree in deer hunting is it's part of the tradition. I want to continue to be part of not only our state's history and tradition of deer hunting, but more importantly, my family tradition. Now, I'm out there with my son, James. I'm out there with my grandkids. I'm remembering my dad and granddad as I sit there in the blind during gun season. And to me, that kind of brings it full circle.
Absolutely. It's ingrained in many of us as Michiganders. Where I went to school, we had November 15th off. They probably still have that day off of school up there. So it's just a different kind of life that we live, and especially when November comes and it's something we're all happy to pass on. The more we learn about folks' kind of activities and how they approach hunting, people come to it for different reasons. But at the end of the day, as long as you're utilizing that protein, you're eating it, I think that tends to be the driving reason for folks to be out there doing it, and that's something we want to continue to promote.
Absolutely, amen to that. All right, so listen, we've got the elections behind us. Is that a sigh of relief for you in Lansing, or is that, oh geez, now we got to start all over again and deal with a new crop, or how do you look at it?
For folks who aren't super in tune, the House and Senate did flip in Michigan, and Governor Whitmer was reelected, so we have a completely Democratic-controlled governor, House and Senate. What that means for MUCC, we're a nonpartisan organization. We work with both sides of the aisle. We work across the aisle. We work with no sides of the aisle when it requires. Really what it just means is we kind of, our focus kind of shifts a little bit, and we look towards different things. We're excited about commercial guiding, and we're excited about commercial fishing. These are two very real pieces of legislation that we can likely get through with kind of the political changes. So it's not all bad, but it will mean just different work in different areas, and we may have to have longer conversations about certain topics, and we may have to fight against some things we haven't had to fight against the last 4 years. So we'll kind of see where it goes, but MUCC is going to be here in Lansing. We're going to keep doing what we always do. Folks can be sure of that.
Commercial fishing makes me think of consent decree. That's still out there. It's been out there forever. Did the elections, that doesn't play a role in that at all directly, does it?
It does not. The consent decree, it's just a tough one right now. And when folks are listening to this, there was actually an announcement this week that it's been extended. It's been extended again.
You got me excited there.
So that it's been extended again, and we're kind of just continuing to kick the can down the road. We're a member of Michigan's Coalition to Protect Michigan Resources, and we're going to continue. We're engaged in a legal battle right now in the Court of Appeals down in Cincinnati. And we're going to continue to fight for recreational anglers' rights and continue to try to be a part of those negotiations as best we can.
How long is this latest extension, Nick?
I believe it is going to be near the end of the year.
Okay. Well, it is what it is.
It is what it is. And again, it's just these continued extensions over and over. If that tells you kind of where we're at. That's kind of the state we're working with right now, and we'll just kind of continue to forge ahead, and hopefully at some point we'll come out on the other side here.
All right, Nick, listen, I know you'll keep an eye on that and much more. Keep up the good work. Nick Green of MUCC, MUCC.org. All right, Nick, good luck, too, if you get out during the firearm season.
Thanks, Mike. You too.
All right. Nick Green of MUCC. Again, the website, MUCC.org, if you want to sign up to become an MUCC member for the first time. I'm an MUCC member, by the way. Go to the website, MUCC.org, MUCC.org. Use the promo code Mike, all caps, M-I-K-E, and you'll save 25% on what is already a very, very reasonable rate to sign up for what I think is a very important organization and one that's keeping an eye out for us in very interesting times. Challenging times. I think Nick may have used the word challenging. I certainly will use the challenging, maybe frustrating as well. I'm glad to have MUCC out there to keep an eye on things. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, this week's Ask Avery segment, a couple of, well, one deer hunting related question, and then much more. That's coming up in this week's Ask Avery segment right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY. That's 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. You can hear us in Houghton Lake on the Twister, 92.1 WTWS. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Newberry on WNBY, 1450 AM. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week here on Outdoor Magazine by my friends at Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. And just a reminder, the Ask Avery segment is a chance for you to get involved in the content of the show. If there's a question you would like me to pass along to somebody else in MUCC or DNR or something like that, maybe somebody that I can reach out and have get contact with that you would have a hard time, that's a great option. Or if it's something you want me to answer directly. This week's Ask Avery segment is kind of a combination of both. Part one. Well, here, the best way to get these questions to me is to send me an email, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, and in the subject line, put Ask Avery, and that makes it easy for me to keep track of them and search of them and get your questions answered. Now, as a backup, and I don't think this is the best way to do it, but it worked this time, Mike Jankowiak sent me a Facebook message, and it did get through this time, Mike, so we got her done. A Facebook message with your question. Here is Mike's question. He says, Mike, I have a question that I'm hoping you can help me with. I've tried to search online, but I'm not having much luck. Do you know how far a private landowner can have a hunting shack from another private landowner here in Michigan? And I followed up. I said, Mike, are you talking about property lines? He said, yes, property lines. So here's the gist of it. There is no law in Michigan regarding how far you have to hunt from an adjacent landowner's property line. And as a result, we see this all the time. People put tree stands and or ground blinds right adjacent to the property line. You can't sit on the property line, but as long as you're on your side of the property, you're okay. The couple of caveats here. Number one, it tends to make adjacent landowners maybe not real fond of each other. That's an issue, right? Okay. Also, you have to be 450 feet from a building unless you have permission. So if the neighbor gives you permission to hunt closer than 450 feet, you're good to go. You can also, on your own property, of course, give yourself permission. Did you know, and this is something that doesn't get promoted, talked about much, and I'm not promoting it. Do you know you can hunt out of your house? Yeah, you can hunt out of your barn. You can hunt out of your outbuildings. Did you know you can hunt out of your house? You can shoot out of your house. You could go up in the upstairs bedroom of your house and shoot out of that. Did you know that? I didn't. I thought, well, that doesn't sound legal. But you can. Because you can give yourself permission to hunt out of your house and you can do it. Yeah, I didn't know that, did you? Like I said, it's not something that gets promoted or talked about a lot. Okay, a couple of other questions here. And I can't attribute these to any particular person, but just some general generic questions that I get asked all the time. Hey, Avery, when are we going to have a wolf hunt? Well, that's a great question. And I'll tell you right now, I don't have the answer to that. I wish I did have the answer to that. But some things to keep in mind there. Don't get mad at the DNR because we don't have a wolf hunt. It's not up to them. The wildlife managers, the game managers in the DNR want to have a wolf hunt, but it's in the hands, well, it was in the hands of the feds, and then it was in the hands of a judge. You can thank the anti-hunting groups, PETA, HSUS, and those other wackos. They are the ones who are tying us up because every time we get approval to have a wolf hunt, they file some kind of a lawsuit. So when are we going to have a Michigan wolf hunt? I don't know the answer to that. Will we ever have a Michigan wolf hunt in the future? I certainly hope so. And I hope that any future wolf hunt in Michigan will involve dog hunters and trappers because then we will reach a quota. We didn't reach a quota on our first Michigan wolf hunt, but if we let the trappers at them and we let the guys run hounds at them, we will reach our quota. Another question. Avery, will we ever have a Michigan dove hunt again? In my opinion, nope. We had a dove hunt, remember? We had a dove hunt and we let it go because when it came up on the ballot, we as Michigan hunters didn't stand behind our fellow hunters. We thought, well, I don't hunt doves, so I won't support this one. And guess what? We lost it. And then again, in my opinion, it ain't coming back. Avery, will we ever have a Michigan moose hunt? Keep in mind, I don't want to say we were promised by the DNR that we were going to have a moose hunt by the year 2000, but it was strong. We were strongly led to believe that because of Moose Lift 1 and Moose Lift 2, when we brought those moose in from Algonquin Provincial Park in Ontario to Pashiki Grade, west of Marquette, we were strongly led to believe that this would result in a moose hunt, a limited, highly limited and regulated moose hunt by the year 2000. That didn't happen. I don't think it's ever going to happen. We just don't have the numbers. All right, so there's a couple of Ask Avery questions for you this week. Again, thanks to our friends at Security Credit Union for making each week's Ask Avery segment possible. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. Email your Ask Avery questions to me, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. That's Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, we're talking steelhead fishing with Captain Lance Keene, and then we'll wrap it up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar and another big announcement this week on Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. So glad to have you along with us. I really do appreciate it. I mean, there are a lot of things you could be doing right now, a lot of things you could be listening to, things you're watching, just all kinds of content out there these days. And the fact that you're hearing my voice, whether it's the broadcast version of the show or the podcast version, I do certainly appreciate it very much. This weekend here in the outdoors in Michigan, a lot of people thinking about, talking about, participating in firearm deer season. This is the opening weekend of the firearm deer season here in the great state of Michigan. But you know, it's not the only thing going on. In fact, if you like to fish, this could be a good weekend to be on the water. The crowds might be down a little bit. We have some great steelhead fishing in our state, and we have some great steelhead fishing guides as well, including Lance Keene of Steelhead Hunter Guide Service, his website, troutscout.com. That's troutscout.com. We managed to find a couple of minutes here when Lance wasn't on the water, and he's with us on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Cap, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Good, Mike. How we doing?
Hey, I'm doing just great. Appreciate your time. Listen, before we get to the topic at hand, let's talk a little bit about this. Your salmon fishing this season. How was it?
Yep, very, very successful season. We had plenty of fish from when time the boats went in the water until the most of the migration went up the river by mid-September. So we had a very good salmon run this year.
Is it an overstatement to say the good old days of salmon fishing here in Michigan are back? Are we like the good old days?
I'd say you're going to see some good old day fishing in the next. If we don't have too hard of a winter in the next couple of years, I'm talking Great Lakes freezing and stuff like that. But if we don't have a hard winter, you're going to see some good old days for about the next 4 years.
What role does that winter weather play in this, Lance?
Just that extreme cold, bad for the forage in the lake, bad for the reproduction in the rivers. You get frozen rivers, shelf ice, anchor ice, kills the eggs, doesn't have a good hatch in the spring. All those factors come into play.
Well, it's, people love salmon, right? People love king salmon. We got all these other types of fish to go after, but when it comes right down to it, it's the pull of that 20, 25, maybe even 30-pound fish on the end of the line that just drives people crazy and gets them addicted.
Yep, exactly. It very well does.
And you are lucky enough to make your living getting people through that addiction.
Yep. A lot of salmon fever.
Yeah, but this time of year, so you're done fishing kings in the river now, I would imagine.
What's that now, Mike?
Are you done fishing kings in the river now?
Yep, the big lake boats are all out, and the salmon round's done. They're done spawning, even at the dam. They did what they needed to do.
So we're talking steelhead now.
Okay, yeah, no, steelhead are in the river, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm right. I was changing topics on you, Lance. Okay. I changed. Yeah. So we are talking steelhead now. So this is what you're concentrating on now, right on and through what? All winter long?
Yeah, no, we'll stay fishing. We have heated jet boat and enclosure, and it can be comfortable, but 20 below and blowing 20. Probably not so much.
Well, what do you care? You're heading for Florida when it gets like that.
Yeah, pretty soon. Another month and a half here, I guess it is. But yeah, this is perfect conditions now. I mean, everybody knows how this fall started. It's been up, and down again. So it's been a little inconsistent as far as weather and transition. The fish kind of didn't know what they wanted to do. They came in pretty heavy, real heavy, in the middle of October when we thought winter was coming, and then 1st of November it was back to summertime. So yeah. So it was a high and then a low, and now we're back to like medium.
So what is it that brings the fish in? Is it water temp or water flow or a combination of both?
A little of both. You need some of them fronts to come through, put some northwest wind out on the Lake Michigan, and we need some water in the rivers. So we got a pretty good flush of water there by mid-October, and man, it was pretty wild steelhead fishing.
Now, this weekend here, as we're in the firearm season, does interest in your trips wane, or do the smart fishermen go, hey, I want to go fishing while everybody else is out deer hunting?
No, I'd say I'm just as busy, if not busier, from, November 15th, 20th through about the 15th of December, and then some stuff in between Christmas and New Year's.
Yeah. And how are you targeting fish this time of year, Lance?
Right now, we're still running bobbers and beads. You can run bobbers and spawn bags. You can run bobbers and beads. They're not chasing like if you're drift fishing where you're casting into the run on the bottom. The water's below. It's probably like 47 now, 46. And so they're going to stay on the inside of the seams, and they're not going to move left and right as far as they normally would. They'll go up and down, but they won't go left or right. So now we're running bobbers, running it vertical through the water column and catching them usually just on the inside of the fast water.
Well, tell me more about bobbers and beads, because if I'm thinking of this, if this is what I think it is, this is a pretty simple, pretty basic way to fish like a lot of us used to fish bluegills when we were kids.
It's a very, very simple technique. Pull the boat or however you're fishing above the run or above the hole and you basically put the bobber in, and it drifts back natural with the current. So you're not impeding the flow or restriction of your drift. And basically you're just going to let it go. And when that bobber goes down, he's got it. You reel down and lift, set the hook, whatever you want to do. Get tight to the fish, basically, is all you have to do. So it's basically watching a bobber.
And the bait is just a colored bead, a plastic bead?
Yep, you're just imitating a salmon egg. And, the more you do it, the more you'll figure out soft colors, dark colors, bright colors, big bead, little bead, the whole 9 yards. Wintertime, pink, orange in the fall when the salmon eggs are dropping hard. There's just a lot of variables there. But basically a 10 millimeter bead is all you need to catch a steelhead.
So are your clients, do you have to use a center pin reel to keep that friction that impeding the motion to a minimum, or can you use spin casting or bait casting reels?
We use mostly all bait casters. The original Garcia C3s, we've used those forever. I've been going to a little bit more low profile, kind of like bass style reels with higher gear ratios. So you pick up the line faster. A, it gets you in and gets you drifting again faster, so you got more chances to catch fish. And B, if you're way in the back of the run and your bobber goes down, you only got to turn the handle a few times to get tight to that fish. So it's definitely, we're advancing in, better end equipment, I guess you would say, to help you catch more fish.
So how far downstream can you let that rig go before you just lose any control or any ability to hook a fish with it?
We call them hero drifts. We let them fly for a while. Sometimes in some spots you can, and in other spots you're running them short. But 160, 180 feet drifts, no problem.
Really?
Yeah.
And is it a very subtle take? Just they say the bobber just slowly goes down and boom, there's a fish?
Nope. When it's slow, it's usually a wood. When you blink and then your bobber's not there, that's a fish. It'll drop really fast.
You mentioned a term called, I wrote it down here, inside of the seam. What does that mean?
Yep. So let's just figure you got a log jam or a current break, a bridge, embankment, anything that's blocking the natural flow of the river. You'll usually see fast water on the tip of it, where it's the main flow, and then on the backside of the log jam, you see slower brackish water. So what we'll usually do is anchor the boat right off the corner of that, say, the tip of the log jam, where the bubble line is, and that's what we call the seam. And usually you'll set your bobber in the run, a foot, 2 foot, 5 foot, depending on water temperature, basically, and you'll fish the inside of the seam. From this time of year till spring thaw.
There's as I'm hearing you describe this, I'm thinking there's a lot more to this than meets the eye, right? I mean, it's.
Oh yeah.
You got to know where to go. You got to know when to be there. You got to know what color. You got to. I don't know. There's a lot going on here that only I would imagine experience can teach you.
Correct. I mean, yeah. When you spend the time on the river, on the water, you should learn and either learn from your mistakes or learn from what was success. So. Basically, like October, you can fish on the outside of the seam or in the seam. But if you throw it on the inside of the seam in what we call like winter water, they're not there. They're out in the main flow looking for the most food. They're still, traveling and moving around, where in the wintertime, they're resting where they don't have to burn the energy. So they're over in the slower, calmer pockets of water.
Real quick question before we take a break. Which is a better teacher, your failures or your successes on the water?
Definitely losing hooks and failures, so then you know where the snags are at.
We're talking with Captain Lance Keene of Steelhead Hunter Guide Service, the website troutscout.com, talking about late fall, early winter steelhead fishing on the big rivers on the west side of the state. Lance is one of the best out there. He's been doing this a long time now. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, pick his brain a little bit more about this, and then why not follow him south on his adventures down to the Keys? We'll talk about that as well with Captain Lance Keene of Steelhead Hunter Guide Service. Again, the website, troutscout.com. That's troutscout.com. My name is Mike Avery. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. And you are listening to Outdoor Magazine. More coming up after the break right here on that show called Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS. You can hear us in Ludington on News 97.98, 98.7 WLDN. And you can hear us in the Thumb on WMIC. In Sandusky, 660 AM and 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by MUCC's On the Ground program. OTG is a program to improve habitat for fish and wildlife across the state. For details, check out the Michigan United Conservation Club's website. It's MUCC.org, MUCC.org. And just a reminder, use the promo code Mike, all caps MIKE, if you're signing up to become an MUCC member for the first time, and you can save 25%. We're talking right now a little fishing, a little late fall, early winter fishing with Captain Lance Keene of Steelhead Hunter Guide Service. His website, troutscout.com. And Lance, speaking of Trout Scout, I was going to ask you how you got started in this. If I remember, you bought Gary's old business, right?
Correct. Yep. I worked on the boat for a year and then bought it the next year.
So how did you get started in this to begin with? Is this something you wanted to do as a kid coming up?
Yeah, my dad and uncles had a big lake boat together in Manistee. My dad had a river boat on the big Manistee River. He was a guide just on the river. We did tournament trail fishing and the Budweiser Pro-Am and the Salmon Splash out of Manistee. And, yeah, it just kind of fell into place. That's what I kept doing.
This concept of making a living on the water, a lot of people dream of it. A lot of people talk about it. They say, hey, Avery, I'd love to be a charter captain or I'd love to be a tournament fisherman. I say, man, be careful what you ask for because it's not necessarily what you think it is, right?
Correct. It's definitely a lot of work.
Are the days, well, let me rephrase this. I feel like it's, with our seasons that we have here in Michigan, if somebody was to stay just in our state and not, do like you do and head south, right. It's a tough thing to do, to be a full-time, this is how I pay the bills, living as a charter captain.
This is the hard part of the season from now until, middle of March, spring thaw-ish. When people starts warming up, people start thinking about fishing again. And then you'll get a good spring run push of people. But then, the spring steelhead are pretty much done or, pretty tired of biting and they're spawning and dropping back. But then you still got like May, which can be up or down with temperatures and wind. And so you might not have, much business in the big lake or can get out in the big lake because of the wind. So you really don't start big lake fishing heavy until mid-June. So, yeah, there's definitely windows where you could be really slow and not have, trips.
So you found this niche that I think was a genius move. Tell me about that, Lance.
Yep. So by Christmas time, I'll head to Islamorada, Florida, down in the Keys, and I'll guide there till about mid-May. And we do all kinds of different saltwater fishing from tarpon, snooks, snappers, groupers, jacks, permit, bonefish, you name it. You can pretty much catch it in Islamorada.
So how does a Michigan guy go down there and, number one, break into the guiding business? I got to believe they looked at you as an outsider for a while. How do you find the fish? How do you catch fish? Again, because you're coming from this Michigan background.
Well, just, electronics are good. They're your friends. Basically, if you can find the live bait, you can go catch something that day, usually. And so basically I spent a lot of my time down there looking for just bait spots and finding bait and then going fishing after you catch the bait and, marking spots and remembering spots and the tides and where to be on certain wind and the whole 9 yards. But basically if you're charter fishing, you kind of get the concept of when and where and what not to do.
Man, you throw in this whole idea of tides, though, and that changes everything, doesn't it? That
was different for me, yes. Yep, that was definitely a learning curve. Not that it was a big deal, but definitely it was like, well, I was here yesterday and the tide was flying, and now there's no tide. And it's like, okay, I got to wait another hour, and then the tide will start flying again. So tides are different every day, and there's charts that'll tell you height and flow, speed, and so I started to learn how to use that. Kind of like I use my gauges for river heights and stuff like that, in Michigan. So kind of the same concept.
So do you want to fish when the water's coming in or going out, or do you want it slack? I don't get the tide thing at all, Lance.
You can catch them at slack. You can catch them when it's flying. You just got to know what to present them. Just to say tarpon fishing. You got to know what to present them and how to present them at high tide, at slack tide, at, a hard fall, a soft fall, so on and so forth. So there's just different ways to present the bait to them. They'll bite it at slack, they'll bite it at flying, but it's just how you're going to present it to them.
So is tarpon, is tarpon the Florida equivalent of a Michigan king salmon? Is that the glory fish?
So just going to say that, like the tarpon, everyone comes down there to catch those tarpon. Every marina has them. Everybody sees these big tarpon. They're like, we want to catch those big tarpon. So that's kind of like the king salmon of the Florida Keys.
But as much as I love our Michigan Kings, those tarpon do get bigger, and it looks like they fight harder too.
Oh yeah, they're pretty mean. They're from 80 to 180 pounds, and they'll jump 6 feet out of the water multiple times, and they'll pull you around, and it's a different beast, that's for sure.
So are you using like the same gear, the same equipment, or do you have to, is everything different down there? Everything heavier down there?
Basically, I'm using you could say they're close to like downrigger size reels, Michigan downrigger size reels with 30-pound, like big game mono. And then I run like a 50-pound, 10 or 15-foot fluorocarbon leader. And, a rod somewhere in that, 20 to 50-pound range seems to be about right, 7.5 footer. And basically that's all you really need. So it's not too heavy of gear. You're not like strapping in with the big shark reels or nothing like that. You're using, semi-light tackle.
But you're not trolling for these fish, right?
Correct. No, you're either drifting a live bait back, or you're chumming with chunks of like mullet. That's a bait fish that runs down there quite frequently in the spring, and you can like chop up mullet chunks underneath and then drift it back, kind of like float fishing but without a bobber. Basically just drifting it back. Live bait on the surface. Slack tide, you can put dead bait on the bottom, or you can run a crab. A live crab works good. So there's multiple ways to catch them.
So do you go out in the morning and throw a cast net for these bait fish, or you just go to the local bait shop and pick them up?
Crabs we buy because they do the crab thing at night, but don't use too many crabs. Use some, but not too many. But every morning the charter starts with going and catching bait. So when we get on the boat, it's a bait mission. You want it to be a one and done, where you throw the net once and you got a blacked out well full of live bait and you're good. But sometimes it takes 30 minutes, sometimes it takes an hour and a half. But you don't go fishing until you got bait. Well,
that's actually part of the adventure, part of the experience, isn't it?
Oh, people love it. The bait fish are flying all over on the deck, and they're scooping them and putting them in the live well, and they're jumping out of the live well. And yeah, it's definitely an experience. And you pull up onto the bait ball and you see them all shimmering, and then you throw on them, and then it's all chaos. There's bait everywhere. It's definitely the whole experience.
I've seen guys throw those nets. Are you good at throwing a net?
Yep, very good.
Is that a skill you had to develop, or was that like something that was just you knew how to do it without ever doing it?
Well, long time ago when I was in middle school, we used to go saltwater fishing down in like Alabama and Florida and different places, and got to know some of the guides, and I would help out, help clean the boat, and some of the first mates would take me out and help them catch bait, and they were showing me how to throw the cast net long time ago. So I had a pretty good idea and understanding of how to throw the cast net, and yeah, it came right back pretty easily to me.
So are your clients, when you're down there in Florida, are they Michigan people who follow you down, or are they locals who book you?
No, you get a few locals and a few, I get some outer-staters and things, but mostly they're all my Michigan clients that follow me down and come down to the warmth and go saltwater fishing.
Yeah, again, I think you've come up with this wonderful, really smart plan of doing things. Oh, how was it? Did COVID? That must have been tough because nobody was coming down there then, were they?
Well, yeah, that was a whole tricky thing in itself. I remember it was like Thursday or Friday, March, I don't know, 18th or 20th, 19th, whatever it was, and they said that they were going to shut the US 1 off to anybody that wasn't a Florida resident coming into the Keys, way up to the homeland. And I'm like, well, if nobody can come in, are they going to let me out? So I pulled the boat, packed all my crap in my truck, and took off to Michigan because I'm like, if they're going to shut that down, what if, gas stations are going to shut down? I didn't know what was going to happen.
Sure.
So, yeah, A, no clients could come, and B, I didn't know if they were going to let me out or let me in or anything. So I was like, time for me to go.
Yeah. But things rebounded. I got to believe this winter you're going to be busy as can be.
Oh, yeah. I think the Keys are going to be really popular, especially with the hurricane that hit the Fort Myers area and all that. I think there's going to be a surplus of other people coming down this year.
Well, Lance Keene, I think you've got to dial in. You offer big water salmon and trout trips. You offer river trips for kings and steelhead. And then right during the heart of the winter, you head down south and get away from it all. I think you're offering a real good package there, and I congratulate you.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, Mike. Thanks.
All right. Listen, I'll let you go, but we'll talk again soon, all right?
All right. Safe hunting.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Same to you. Captain Lance Keene of Steelhead Hunter Guide Service, the website, troutscout.com. That's troutscout.com. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, the show is just flying. Again, Pat, right? Pat Johnson here in the studio with me. By the way, we'll do this early. Doing a wonderful job, as always, Pat. I do appreciate that. But this show has just flown. It's you know that you love what you're doing, and when you can sit here for 3 hours, and at the end of the 3 hours, you go, where did that time go? Well, and that's the way this show is. My name is Mike Avery. The website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address is Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Do not hesitate to reach out to me. You can send me your Ask Avery questions at that email address, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. You can also send me your hunting pictures, your successful trips, your big doe, your big buck, your little buck. I don't care. If you were excited enough to shoot it, then I want to share in that excitement and post it on my Facebook page. You can either send it to me in a private message or send me an email to Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Traverse City on WTCM. That's 580 AM. Let's go to Manistee and WMLQ 97.7 FM and jump back over to the other side of the state. WSGW 790 AM and 100.5 FM. I'm in the studios of WSGW right now. As I said earlier, I'm in here with Pat Johnston doing a wonderful job as always, and I appreciate the fact that he lets me borrow his studio for 3 hours each week to do this Outdoor Magazine radio show. This segment brought to you by Reader Landscaping. Reader can take care of your lawn and property because it's your nature and our nurture. Let Reader create an outdoor getaway in your backyard as they have for me. In fact, as I was leaving this morning, I had already gone. My wife Denise called me and she said, "Hey, the guys from Reader are here. They were here to do the final fall cleanup." She said, "They're wandering around here looking around like there's nothing left to do," because I surprised them. I had it all taken care of. I should have just, I shouldn't have. I should have taken that time that I had spent around the yard there and I should have gone hunting and let the guys from Reader take care of it. But they will be back because they're going to do one final trimming of our trees for the fall. Those guys are over there at our house all the time. Whether it's taking care of the water feature, the sprinklers, they've got that all done now. Fall cleanup. I don't have a mow. I do my own mowing. I don't want to say lazy. Lazy's not the word, but you know what I mean. And if you want to have them take care of your snow this winter, Reader can do that as well. Check out the website, readerlandscaping.com. That's readerlandscaping.com. So this is the first weekend of the firearm deer season. Yeah, the season's been open for a few days now, but maybe for you, maybe you had to work all week and this is the first time you can get out, good luck to you. If you've been out since Tuesday, well, I hope your season is going well. It's funny, isn't it? How did your season go? Well, if you are seeing deer or you shot a deer, your season's doing great. If the people one section over, the next section over, if they're not seeing deer or they didn't shoot one yet, they might be saying, "Oh, it's a terrible season," and you might be a mile apart. That's just the way it goes. What is the most common question you're hearing right now? Did you get your deer? Did you get your deer yet? I bet you I hear that 100 times a season. Did you get your deer yet? Well, as we are recording the show right now, the season hasn't actually started. So no, at this point right now, no, I do not have my deer yet. By the time you're hearing the show this weekend, will I? I don't know. My goal for this season is to shoot a big doe with that Brenton 350 Legend. I say my goal is to shoot a doe because, honestly, I don't expect that I will see a buck that I want to pull the trigger on. I'm not saying I won't see a buck. I just won't see a buck that I don't want to shoot. Doesn't mean I'm being elitist. Doesn't mean I'm being a snob. Doesn't mean I'm being one of those trophy hunters. Absolutely not. But I've got a 150-inch buck on the wall. I got a 130-ish on the wall, and I got a 120-ish on the wall. So I don't feel the need to shoot a smaller buck at this point. I'll just likely shoot a doe. Now, listen, if I see a nice buck, and it doesn't have to be a 130 or a 150, absolutely not. But if I see a nice, respectable buck that gets my heart beating, will I pull the trigger on that Brenton? Absolutely, you bet I will. But here's the thing about hunting in general, but in particular, Michigan deer hunting. It is a very personal, intimate experience. My trophy isn't your trophy and vice versa. You don't have to live up to my standards, whatever they are, or down to my standards. There are a lot of people who think that I shoot, they give me grief for shooting small deer, and I don't care. Hunt your hunt. It is your license. It is your experience. It is your time in the outdoors. Maybe you have a very limited amount of time. Maybe you have 2 full weeks to hunt. It's your hunt. Hunt your hunt. Pull the trigger on whatever animal makes you happy. As long as it's a legal harvest, then I am not going to judge you, and no fellow hunter should judge you or make any snide comments or shame you about what they consider to be a smaller buck. A legal deer is a legal deer, and you should be proud of it. If it gets you excited, pull the trigger, revel in the experience, enjoy the harvest, enjoy the venison, and be part of the history and tradition. If an animal walks by you that isn't up to your standards, whatever those standards are, and doesn't get you excited, then go ahead and pass. It's a very intimate, personal experience. A hunter cannot mandate or dictate morals or ethics or whatever the minimum should be on shooting a buck. I hope we're getting past that in Michigan. I think we were a few years ago when the let them go, let them grow movement started, and when quality deer management first really started in the state, I think we did see some shaming. I think we saw a lot of shaming. I think we have evolved and developed and grown past that where it's at a minimum. It's not allowed on my social media outlets. You make a negative comment towards a fellow hunter or angler, and you're gone. I want nothing to do with it. So if you shoot a deer and you want to share it with the world, please feel free to do that on my Facebook page. Post a picture or send me a picture in the private messages, or send me an email to Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Be safe while you're out there. 2 types of tree stand hunters, those who have fallen and those who will. If you've been out for a few days and you're getting frustrated, don't let it get to you. Just remember, you can't shoot a deer from the couch. You got to be out there to do it. Got to put your time in. Sometimes you're lucky. Sometimes it happens right away. Sometimes you got to put your time in, and you got to earn it. Whatever the experience is, embrace it, enjoy it, and be out there and have fun. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll wrap up this week's show with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar right here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. My name is Mike Avery. So glad to have you along with us. As I said earlier, there's a lot of different things you could be listening to right now. So much content out there these days. It can be overwhelming. And the fact that you're hearing my voice, whether it's the broadcast version of the show or the podcast version, certainly does mean a lot to me. Also means a lot to me to be able to wrap up each week's show with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. Last week, David was on the show and he made an announcement that he was retiring. Wow, after so many years in the restaurant business, he's retiring. And I said, David, I'm very happy for you. My next question was completely selfish. I said, can you still do our Trinity Monitor wild game dinner? He said, of course. But then we got thinking, what can we do to help celebrate this? Well, Chef Dixie Dave Minar is with us on the phone line once again to talk more about this. David, welcome back. How are you?
I'm very good, Michael. And how about yourself?
I'm good. Listen, what was the reaction to you last week as you talked to people and they heard about your big retirement announcement?
I had people shake their finger at me and tell me I better don't. And other people are congratulating me. So I had a guy, I was talking to somebody about it in a booth over by the bar there. And a guy come up and said, what are we going to do? Where will we eat? There's nowhere to eat in town other than here. And I said, well, I'm sorry, but he said, you better not. Then he left. I don't know if he was joking me or threatening me.
Well, I hope he was joking, because if he was a friend of yours, he certainly wouldn't say that. But you know, Dave, we've done a few of these Wednesday night live events at Oscar and Joey's in the past, and they've been extraordinarily successful. We had to kind of scale back, obviously, during COVID, and then there was the staffing shortage. What do you think of the idea? And can you pull it together? Can we do one last Wednesday night live at Oscar and Joey's and just blow the place up and just have a huge event? Can you make that happen, Dave?
I can. And, you know, if we last a little longer, like up to the New Year's, then we might have to do another one, you know, to give a fond farewell. But this could be booked as the last one. But look at all these people go on tour, and they already have 4 or 5 of the last tours.
So
yeah, I got the staff lined up. My nephews are coming back to help us for that night, and their little boys that are 10, they're going to do dishes. We shall be able to rock and roll.
All right. So how does the date of Wednesday night, December 7th, look for you?
Perfect.
Let's do it. Let's do a Wednesday night live, one last big final hurrah at Oscar and Joey's Wednesday night. The Wednesday night live will start at 7, but boy, people are going to want to be there early that night. I'm thinking 5:30 or so.
I've been telling them about 5:30, 6 o'clock. Get there, get dinner done, enjoy yourself. You know, you're not under pressure, and the kitchen could be a lot easier for it's like close to 100 people at one time. So we try to stretch it out a little. So it's going to work out just great. We'll bring some more tables and chairs up. And maybe set people banquet style if we have to, if we get that many reservations. Well, I'm sure we will.
And I'm thinking this time, too, Dave, I don't know, if I was you, and I'm not telling you how to run your business, I don't think I'd offer a full menu. I would just do maybe some specials so you can do them easier, and you can spend more time out in the dining room this time.
Well, let's see. I'm going to have 4 chefs plus myself.
All right. Well, listen, whatever you think.
We should be able to just rock and roll. I'll see what kind of wild game I can come up with. I might be able to get some more venison and elk, maybe rabbit. We'll see if I can get some pheasant from the purveyors. I'll see what we can come up with, and I'll get it all lined up well in advance. Okay, yeah, because since this is our last one, I would like to see you be able to enjoy yourself a little bit more, spend some time out in the dining room and less time in the kitchen this time around. Okay, I'll see what we can come up with. I should be able to get out there a lot, with 4 other chefs plus myself. All righty. Again, so this is Wednesday Night Live. This is going to be Wednesday, December 7th at Oscar and Joey's. Boy, you're going to want reservations ahead of time, though, aren't you, Dave? Oh, absolutely. 989-624-9349. When you make a reservation, I need a phone number as a confirmation so I can call you back and let you know that, yep, you're in the books. And we're going to limit it to probably around 100 people or so.
989-624-9349. This is for the final Wednesday Night Live at Oscar and Joey's before Dave retires. And again, reservations are going to be crucial here. And we don't want people who are just going to call and make a reservation and not show up, because that's a table that we could let somebody else have.
Right. We will not allow, like, off-the-street people, like the motel people and stuff like that. This is going to be strictly a Mike Avery event, not walk-ins.
989-624-9349. If you don't get somebody to answer the phone there at Oscar and Joey's, leave a message with your name and phone number and how many people. And, Dave, I am already excited about this.
Me too. And if the answer machine is filled up, call back after Thursday at, say, 3 o'clock.
All right. Sounds good. 989-624-9349 for the final Wednesday Night Live at Oscar and Joey's. We're going to have one big last blowout event. 989-624-9349. Call for reservations. This is going to be fun. All right, my friends, appreciate you being along with us this week on the Outdoor Magazine radio show. Again, the website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. The email address, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. If you are hunting this weekend, have fun. Good luck. Be safe. If you're fishing this weekend, the same. And if you're just kicking back, you know what? That's all right, too. My name is Mike Avery, and I'll talk to you next time right here on Outdoor Magazine.